We love pitching velocity, we love hitting velocity, but you cannot be a successful college player or really any successful baseball player if you can't play any defense. Today's guest, Coach Joe Caracci, works with both gap to gap baseball and Canes baseball, and he's worked with a lot of elite infielders and outfielders at every level. Today, we're going to be breaking down the common mistakes that are hurting your defense and how to fix them right away. So, Joe, thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, of course. So I wanna just start off with, this is not a glamorous topic, like again, everybody's obsessed with velocity nowadays. And so I really want to start with just what are the mistakes that you're seeing athletes making in their fielding?
Yeah, well, I mean the today's focus is on the measurable, and the measurables are great. We can tell a lot about a player by their measurables, and that's not something that we gloss over. Those are great ways to track your progress. It's very difficult to track your measurables as a defender. So you're right, it does kind of get glossed over. Some guys can have some really sexy measurables, really quick 5-10-5s or 60 times or infield velocity, exit velocity, but that doesn't mean that they can help your team win and help your team prevent runs defensively, which at the end of the day is what high level coaches are looking for. They're looking for guys that can help their teams create runs and help their teams prevent runs. And on the defensive end, we got to prevent runs. And I would just say that the two things that I've noticed that we stress with our really, really young guys is a strong foundation in what we call elite fundamentals, which it's kind of our spin on fundamental baseball, fundamental defense, but thinking at them even at a young age with a more intentional focus. And then those things have to continue on a daily basis into your career, however far you go. And you can see as many Instagram videos and YouTube shorts and TikToks you want of Mookie Betts, doing his fundamental work before games, but like it doesn't really sink in that that's really happening at the highest level. The reason that those guys are so great is because the fundamental things are just instinct to them, and they are creating those instincts through repetition and intentional repetition. With our Canes guys, they're in school ball right now, my group, and something that we're before their school season started and going individually, the athlete has to take the initiative to be intentional about their own work in their practices with their school, because a middle school baseball coach, a high school baseball coach, a JV baseball coach, they may be more focused on things from a team aspect, and those are really important things. So it's a lot. If you want to be elite, you have to hold yourself to a higher standard than what your teammates are on any team you're on. So we had practice Saturday, and I'm watching their catch play, which is what we call warm-ups. I hate that term, warm-up. I think catch play and it just wasn't going great. And I'm like, guys, what is this? We forgot. Well, if you forgot, then you weren't doing it this week or the week before. So, you really kind of dropped the ball there, and you're losing that attention to detail. And, those elite fundamentals are going to take you through everything, as simple as catch. How are you catching the ball in catch play or in your infield reps? Are you focused on presenting the pocket to the ball and making contact with the pocket and just the pocket? Or are you just catching the ball? Are you being lazy with it? And just a heightened level of focus on that can make a world of difference in your instincts on game day. And then you can go on from there, but there's more. How we transfer the ball. When do we catch with one hand? When do we catch with two? And those things, there's 5 that we really focus on. The instinct as a player gets older, that varsity second baseman, senior, junior second baseman, they want to start working on real position specific things, like just say turning the double play from second base, which is a difficult play. But they lose focus on those elite fundamentals, and you need all 5 of those elite fundamentals to make that play. So I would say from an athlete standpoint, it's your responsibility to be intentional about everything you do, particularly in infielding. Being an elite infielder is not it's an everyday thing. If you want to be an elite infielder, you're gonna take less swings. That's why in the big leagues, this is not a rule, but you can go down the list and be like, the most accomplished hitters in the big leagues are outfielders. They have to spend less time on defense. Being an elite infielder is a real art, and it takes a lot of work. So that's what that for the athlete, that's what I would say, that intentionality on your work is your responsibility. I could tell parents and coaches some different things, but if we're focused on the athlete, I would say that is definitely where I see guys falling short, as they get lazy and they fall into the same culture that they're around, created by their buddies. And if they want to be elite, then you have to have elite habits.
Dude, that's good. And that's like when you look at any great athlete in any sport, I mean, again, they focus on those fundamentals. Like, Steph Curry is known for his 3-point shooting because he freaking does it over and over and over again, even when it's boring. So fundamentals, like you said, it's boring. But
Steph
when
Curry's
you,
Steph
if
Curry's
you,
putting up shots. He's putting up shots every day. Right now, he's probably putting up shots.
yeah, yeah, it's all about those reps, and I know you can get into like what those reps look like, but yeah, I think it's so key. And then you talk about that intentionality and that the laziness. I think that's a huge piece, and I like to compare it to, when you mentioned just catching a ball versus like catching it, like right here, like it's like athletes who are trying to build muscle just simply just trying to eat more. They're just kind of aiming, just grabbing for anything, and there's no intentionality with it. And so then they get
Right.
variable results. So your variable results with the fielding if all you're doing is focusing on catching.
I'll bring it back, and I've always been pretty focused on intentionality. But I had a former player of mine come to a catching clinic, and he's a bench coach for the White Sox in Double A. He's one of the hardest workers I've ever been around, and I asked him in front of the boys, to speak on that. And what he said kind of caught me by surprise. And he said eventually everybody at your level works hard. The separator is going to be, what are you doing? Are you intentional with your work? Are you doing the right things? Do you have the right coaching, the right guidance to make your work more quality than your opposition, your teammate, whoever else's work? And that really kind of stuck with me. And it made me take some of the things with gap to gap in some different directions, because he's so right. He's so very right about, you know, like what you're saying, the work, particularly nowadays, everybody knows they have to work. And at a certain level, everybody's putting in work. Everybody's getting their swings in and everybody's getting their ground balls. But, how intentional are you being with that work? Do you have the right people to guide you? Are you surrounding yourself with the right people? Are you falling into your culture? If it's not the culture that's creating the type of players that you want to be, or are you elevating that? Or are you around a culture that is creating the type of players that you want to be? And are you immersing yourself in that culture? Those things are all super important in creating the path that you want to create for yourself, and opening your eyes to those things. If you're at a place, if you're a kid that wants to get drafted and you're at a place that's not producing draft picks on a regular basis, or Power Five Division One guys, then you're clearly going to have to hold yourself to a higher standard than your teammates, and the people before you. If you are at that place, then you just gotta immerse yourself in that culture, dive into it. So for the player, just having an open eyes to those things is super important.
I love that because it's like you also think about, it's like you rise to the people around you, or you level, like basically like, yeah, who you're around and stuff. And so there's that culture. But I also, another way I've heard it described is you think about a thermostat. And if it's set at 70 and it starts to get cold, it's going to kick on and elevate to that 70. So if you're down here at like 64, but everyone around you is a 70, like you're going to try to get up to that 70. Vice versa
Right.
though, if all of the people around you are, a 70, or let's say a 60, and you're wanting to be a 70, you gotta like do more, and you gotta try to raise everybody else up, hopefully. But you may not
Right.
have that success, but you gotta, do what you can.
Right. And that really speaks to the details too, because the big strokes like the exit velocity, the pitching velocity, those things are going to be there pretty much wherever you are. But like you're talking about, the defensive details, the things that you need to kind of be a complete player, those are the details that we're talking about. That elevated sense of like intentionality. I know that's like a buzzword these days. I hate using the buzzwords, but intentionality is just it's so spot on. Like being intentional with your actions and your work, it just, there's no substitute for that. And being consistent, defensively, consistency is the key to being a good defender. Consistency is the key to being a flashy defender. You can't create the instinct to become a flashy defender and make the crazy, Sports Center top 10 play without that consistency to create the instinct that helps you make that play. We're close to the bananas, and obviously the guys, they're around those guys in the community, like they're giving instruction and they're coming. One of the firefighter shortstop just came out and did a little session with my Canes team, and he was awesome. And one of the things we really got to take away from that is all the cool things are rooted in the 5 elite fundamentals. So I'm like, watch him. It's pocket to the ball. It's through center low chest. It's, 2 hands inside one. Like it's all the things that we're preaching on every one of those trick plays, but they're so rooted in those are so instinctual for them that they can be flashy. And, there's not a high level infielder out there in the world that's not flashy, because flashy's fast. But the instinct is to want to go get the sexy thing and be flashy. But the path to that is just that straight line. Flashy's just rooted in the routine, and you want the guy that can do both.
Yeah, that's huge. And that's with anything in life, really. But so let's actually, I want to take this in a perspective of, athletes listening, starting with like, hey, how would you approach getting better as a fielder, developing a fielder? Let's start actually with more of that middle school athlete, because I know you mentioned to me offline about the what's really important with those middle schoolers that they got to figure out before they hit high school. So what are some of those things that you really emphasize with those middle schoolers?
Yeah, and I think that these just play, and each player or each athlete is kind of, it's tough in the team setting sometimes, but you take broad strokes and you kind of see what sticks and what doesn't. But like I said, these things never really go away. But in the infield series, if we're talking about, let's say 12 to 15, like we're talking about a middle school age player, a high school freshman, those 5 elite fundamentals for us are, like we said, pocket awareness, pocket to the ball, pocket contact. I'm really focused on that. We'll take the angle that all these things are happening in catch play. I'm a firm believer that if you're going to be an elite infielder, particularly as you're developing instinct at a young age, these things need to happen in catch play, because you're getting the most reps more than likely to focus on these things in catch play. That's a term that I didn't make up. I heard it somewhere and I loved it, and it's something that I've been preaching for years. But an intentional catch play where that's the number one focus. I'm going to show the pocket to the ball. The ball's going to hit the pocket and only the pocket. I'm feeling for that and I'm listening for that. How many times can I hear contact? How many times can I feel contact? You want to make the guy that you're throwing with sound like he's throwing 100. Wow, one solid contact. Number 2 for us is being on time. The routine play is going to be maybe 2 hands, work through center low chest. And I'm in my car, so I can't really show you, but pocket contact happens as the toes of my glove hand foot are hitting the ground. That's going to allow my footwork to work behind the play to make a strong and accurate throw. Number 3 is if I'm outside my body, I'm going to field it with one hand. If I have to press forward, one hand, backhand, one hand, glove hand, one hand. This works in the outfield too. You're not going to go over your shoulder and try to make a play with 2 hands. And we get a lot of like, when do I use one hand? When do I use 2 hands? If I'm outside the frame of my body, then I'm going to use one. If I'm inside the frame of my body, I'm going to use 2. And I can work on that in catch play. I can intentionally catch balls outside the frame of my body when I'm playing catch, right? And then everything goes to center low chest, which is The example that I'll use is if you have your glove on your belly, your pinky of your glove is touching below your belly button, the thumb is touching above your belly button, and then I have that path where I can take the ball out. The glove's facing that way. And really, it's about an inch away from your body. You don't want to touch your body, but that's center low, and everything works through center low chest. So if I'm two hands, I'm going to work to center low chest that way. If I'm having to make the play with one hand outside my body, I'm going to hinge at the elbow and bring the ball into center low chest and meet my throwing hand there. And then the last one, once I'm there, I don't take the ball out with my hands. I take the ball out with my elbows, which is going to get me into a connected position where I'm going to be able to throw the ball where I want to throw it with as much velocity as I can use in that position. You know, everything's rooted in those 5 things: turning double plays, fielding ground balls, and all of those things can be worked on in catch play. I don't have to put the ball on the ground to work on those things. And there may be at a younger level, you know, with youth guys, you're working on maybe 2 or 3 of those things in your catch play. And then maybe when you get to the middle school level, you can start to blend them all together. And then that stays with you forever. Like that's never something that you're not thinking about, those 5 things. And so those are the things that like we really focus on with our guys. And those are the things that I say are our elite fundamentals. You know, the joke that I always make with like young guys that they'll come to the infield series, and it's like the infield series is popular here and we've had good results. And, you know, little guys come in and I tell them, when your parents ask you, what'd you learn today? I want you to tell them, Coach Joe taught me how to take the ball out of my glove. Like, but it's funny because it seems like something that's so simple, but if we're focusing on the right way to do it, we really can build, you know, an elite defender. Coach Joe taught me how to catch the ball. But you're 14. What do you mean? Well, it was a little bit different than we've talked about before. And, you know, there's a little more focus on detail. And I think that's just like what we've been talking about, those details that never go away. And you can start young with those, like you can. And the younger you can start with them, the more they're going to be imprinted. I use the word instinct a lot because we need to build instinct in order to play free. I saw a quote last week. It was like, the more I know, the less I think. And that's really something that I'm into, particularly in the instruction world. For me as an instructor, is I want to teach you things about the game. Then your job is to go home and get the reps to imprint those things into your instinct, and then take those instincts to your team that you play on and help your team win. But the feeling of being prepared and walking in the gate and knowing that you've put in the work, and that if you fail or succeed, it's probably going to be things that are out of your control. That's an incredible feeling. You know, that's real confidence. And you can really just play when that's the case. If you're not having to think, you know, and when you're young, if you're a middle school player, you might not have developed the instincts that you need to compete at a really high level yet, but you shouldn't have. You're still working on that, but allow yourself to play free and make a mistake and then go back to the drawing board the next week and stick to your routine. And then you'll find those instincts taking over. But that freedom to just be equipped with the right knowledge, the right intentional work, and be able to go and play, like really play relaxed, is that there's nothing like it. That's what guys are chasing. And too many guys try to take the knowledge and they're handcuffing themselves. And that's not the model there.
When it's, you know, I really like the idea of the instincts and everything. I think is so huge because the instincts don't come from like just automatically. Like it's I mean, yeah, there might be some genetic whatever, but like in general, instincts in anything, you have to build those things. Like when I hear athletes like baseball players telling me that, you know, they are like struggling mentally, I'm like, okay, well, like it goes back to, are you putting in the work like you talked about? Like, are you putting in the defensive work? Are you doing the things off the field or, you know, outside of games that actually are going to translate to in game?
It's just like anything else. I say all the time, as we're creating instincts, because that's a word that I use so much. And it's just like any other skill that you're building: walking, running, reading. And I always say the thing, hey, it's okay. We're still sounding it out. You know what I mean? When you learn to read, you look at words and you have to sound them out. Like now you can look at words and you just know what they say because you've built an instinct. I just tell parents and I tell kids when they make the mistake, it's okay. You're still sounding it out. Sound it out, right? But you have to sound it out in your work on your own. Go slow, chunk the pieces of it, like master one part of it, then put them all together, and then you have a finished product. And then you can just relax and play, and you're going to make mistakes. And if failure is good too, even in your work, failure is good. I like this is more of a hitting thing, I think, but like if I take a bad swing and it registers in my brain that that was not good, that helps me develop the right path as long as I'm being realistic. Like, hey, that wasn't good. Catch play is the same way. If I make a catch and I catch it over here, I probably didn't have pocket presented to the ball, and I register that. Then the next time I'm probably going to get pocket, uh, presented to the ball and have that pocket contact. So yeah, failure is okay as long as you can register the failure and you're honest with yourself.
Yeah. So let's. I really like that analogy. By the way, that's a really good analogy, and
Oh,
I think a
sounding
lot of
it
the kids
out.
can resonate. Yeah, yeah, that's yeah. So for the high schooler, how can you? I feel like a lot of high schoolers, even if they don't have any offers, they might get to varsity or whatever, and they get even on C team, they get comfortable and they think, okay, well, I'm doing the things, and maybe they're not doing the things. Like, what do you feel like? What are the mistakes, and what do you feel like you really want to speak to the high school athlete on when it comes to fielding?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's the same thing. It's the same things. Now, like when you're a little bit of a more high level player, particularly in the infield, there are position specific things that you need to work on. Like the shortstop turning the double play, the right side of the infield, or excuse me, the left side of the infield's got to be a little more proficient with the backhand. Because we got to field the ball in a way to make a strong and accurate throw. We're big on that too. The instinct in the back, the intent in the back of the head all the time is to field the ball in a way to complete a play. We're not worried about fielding it cleanly. I have to make a play. So there's things that first base, there's a lot of position specific things at first base. The hardest play on the field is turning a double play from second base, so the second baseman has to be really proficient in those things. And like I said, the knee jerk reaction is to try to really get good at those things when you're a high school player because you need to. But even though all of those things are rooted in those elite fundamentals, so I just would say that you know don't skip that part every day, and then go to your position specific work and blend the elite fundamentals into your position specific work, because you'll be amazed how much they'll help you. If you're struggling with the backhand play, you'll be amazed how much pocket contact, hinge to center low chest, ball out with elbows will help you on the backhand play, particularly pocket contact, because most most high school players are pretty efficient on fielding the ball cleanly on the backhand, but they lose it in the transfer, or they make the bad throw because the ball isn't where it needs to be in the pocket and they're searching for the ball, and now their hands and their upper body aren't matching with the footwork and they make a bad throw. You'll see a lot of throwing errors from the backhand. And again, it goes back to that piece. So before you start working on those advanced areas, make sure that you get your elite fundamental work in, and then you can be. They're called elite fundamentals for a reason. Like, sure, I could just throw, catch, whatever, and it's going to look great, but they're elite fundamentals because of that. They're going to translate over into your position specific work or your place specific work and help you understand how to make those plays. And when you fail, understand where you failed. So, it's like I said, it's a straight line. It's really not that different. Of course, they become more instinct and you can find yourself being a little more flashy. And it's okay to practice the flashy when you have developed those instincts, because my favorite infielder of all time is Nolan Arenado. And there's so many videos and articles where he just kind of documents the fact that people will ask him, well, that play looks so routine to you. And he goes, because it is. Like he just leaves no stone unturned. That analogy works. He's not my favorite quarterback, because I'm a Bills fan, but you'll see Patrick Mahomes, making all these crazy throws from these crazy angles, and then you'll see him do it in the game and it looks routine because it is. And it's no secret that he was a shortstop. You know what I mean? A good one too, a really good one. And his dad played in the big leagues. Yeah, I just think, but all those things are rooted in those fundamentals. Even when you watch Arenado and those little, like, there's one video that's been floating around lately. He's with A-Rod. He's like on a knee, but you can see him hinge the center low chest, ball out with the elbows. And he's throwing, you know, 60 yards across the field from a knee, which is impressive, but it's still rooted in those fundamentals. And once you've made those fundamentals routine, you can start to make every play on the field routine. So that's what I would tell the high school guys. Don't skip it. Don't skip it. Make it an everyday thing where you're focused on those things. And you have an easy build in and catch play to at least focus on it there, and then go from there. Then just play.
Yeah, dude, there's so many analogies that can be applied there too. I mean, even back to your sounding it out and all that. It's like once you figure out the shorter words and you figure out the syllables and all these things, you start figuring out the bigger words.
So the next step in that analogy is kind of where you start to be able to use context clues to figure out what things mean. You're not just reading anymore, you're understanding. So you start by sounding it out, and then you're reading, and then you're understanding. And then there's even some words you've never seen before, but you can understand what they mean because you're using context clues. So it might be a play you've never made before, right? It's something you've never, it's baseball. Like, you don't dictate like every single play, but you're able to make the play because you're piecing it together with the context clues. It's a pretty deep analogy. I'm a nerd, so.
Yeah, but it makes it easy to like like for me, a lot of my analogies go around cars because food and gas and all the things, it goes really well.
Yeah.
So like having those
Yep.
analogies that resonate is huge. So I know we're hitting about that 30-minute mark, and so I really want to touch on some mental side because I've seen it in game, but I also know like there's a few different things we talked about offline around the mental, the communication, the leadership, especially when we talk about outfield. Like infield, I know there has to be good communication, flow, instinct, but outfield I feel like is one where you tend to see a little bit more struggle, miscatches, just the timing, just some of those things. So what do you feel like are some common issues you see in flawed outfielders?
Well, I think really great outfield play is rooted in communication, because you can be a good outfielder and be a great athlete, and you're still a lot of those elite fundamentals going to the outfield, particularly present the pocket to the ball, things like that. But if you're going to be a great outfielder, that means you're making great plays. You're taking away hits. And a lot of times when you take away hits, you have to leave your feet to make the play. And you're just not going to be comfortable to leave your feet unless you trust your teammate and you trust that you can leave your feet without spearing them. And that just comes from communication. And this is more of a team defense thing and more of a coaching thing. But if you're an athlete and you're an outfielder and you feel like you're not comfortable making the great play that a great outfielder makes, it's probably because of that. So talk to your teammate. You're like, hey man, we got to get on the same page with this communication thing. So for us, it's I got it 3 times. Take it 2 times. You know what I mean? And we have that specifically for us, that verbiage. And you have to create a verbiage for your buddies, your team. Create some verbiage where it's I got it, take it, but create whatever your verbiage is going to be. And when the ball starts coming down, if nobody's called for the ball, the priority outfielder, so usually the center fielder, or if it's an in-between ball between the left fielder and the shortstop and the third baseman, the priority outfielder at that point has to make a decision. He's got to say, I got it, I got it. Or if he can't get there, he's got to let the other guy know, take it, take it, take it, take it. The ball starts coming down. So that shortstop can know, okay, we're deep, we're in the gaps, there's 2 outs, we're playing no doubles. I got to go get this thing. And I can feel comfortable leaving my feet if I need to. And I'm not going to spear Johnny in left field and I'm going to break my neck and he's going to break his leg. You know what I mean? That it's timid outfielders it's because of fear. And it's pretty understandable. You know what I mean? So, that's definitely a team thing. A coach has got to really kind of be dialed in there. But an individual player can take responsibility, particularly if they're a leader. I think the example you brought up, there was like an outfielder who was going to pitch. But if he's the leader of the outfielder, he should leave the outfield in good shape, particularly if he wants to go pitch. He's got to demand that standard when he's not in the outfield, the same as was when he is in the outfield. If he's that center fielder, that leader of the outfield, if he's got to go pitch, he's already created that culture with his buddies out there that he knows there's going to be a high level of communication when he's not out there. So I really think great outfield play is rooted around that high level communication, because you just feel comfortable taking risks.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that makes a lot of sense. Like, I mean, I think we've really hit well on number one, those big infield things, which go back to the fundamentals. Obviously, outfield also goes back to fundamentals, but then you add that layer of the communication piece too. So I want to wrap up on this one because I know it's something that you're actively working on. And so how do you feel, number one, what are you doing with online in terms of how that's helping your athletes, and why should athletes have some sort of online piece to their defensive development?
So it goes back to that same conversation with Danny Milwee, the AA coach from the White Sox. The link for an instructor, on the instruction side, not on the coaching side, is I need the kids to develop, you know, and the missing link for that is, like we talked about, the puzzle is learn an instruction, go home and create instincts, use those instincts to help your team win. That's the puzzle. The gray area in the puzzle is go home and create instinct. And when Danny said that about everybody works hard, but the key is that work intentional? Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing at home, or on your own when no one's looking? And when he said that, I was like, oh. So, I'm reflecting on that, and I've been kind of toying around with the idea of doing some online programming. And then I was just like, I have to figure this out, because this is going to be, for me, there's also challenges in instruction from the family side. You know, in order to keep continuity, I got to see a kid at least once a week. And, some of the kids I work with live 45 minutes away. An hour-long session with me is $80. That's not inexpensive. I understand that. So there's obstacles there too. So the online piece for me was going to take some of the burden of getting the athlete here weekly, yet still being able to have continuity in their work. It's going to be less expensive because they're here in person less of the time. And it's going to be getting them better with good intentional work at home. So it's sort of a no-brainer, and the initial results have been fantastic. So many things that I wasn't even anticipating. The work is great, and we're seeing instincts being developed quicker, because it's not just, oh, I can't remember what Coach Joe told me to do when I do this drill or this stretch, or I can't remember the stretch routine or this or that. There's no more I can't remember. Click the button.
Yeah.
There it is. There's the video. There's the short explanation. So we're being intentional with the work. The two things that I will say, and I'm kind of going off a little bit here, but I didn't intend to be like something that I noticed and or parents noticed. Number one, the parents love the accountability aspect of it. When your 10-year-old son is like, no, mom, I can't go outside and play yet. I got to get my OTC work in. Like, that's cool, you know, that's cool. And what I've noticed is a lot of times in instruction, the instructor is molding the player into the position of the body that he needs to be in, and he's kind of forcing him to get that line drive middle. Like, no, no, not like that. Put your butt there, this, that, you know. When they're doing it on their own, they get to put their own athletic fingerprint. So a lot of them comes back into the swing, which leads to quicker instincts, which leads to less thinking on game day. So we really have had with some of our guys results that have been way quicker than I imagined. It hasn't happened for everyone, but I really have seen like a kid come in. And so the kids are coming in every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. I'm getting video from them, in game. And I'm like, huh, like, man, he's really getting to that position in his own way. And it really works for him. Man, that's cool. And that is something I didn't intend for, but it's been a really cool byproduct of starting the OTC. Um, I'll do whatever I can to give my guys the advantages and use whatever I can at my disposal to get that to happen.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I wanted to highlight that because I know it's for athletes, it's another opportunity for you to continue to get better and to have that resource rather than all of the distractions and things that can hold you back, like things that can help you get better easier. Like it's just much more easier that way. And so yeah, I love that. And so for those who are listening, make sure that you check the caption and they'll have Joe's recordings in there, all those things in there that you can utilize and check him out, connect with his online stuff, and then or if you're local, obviously check him out in person too, down in the southeast. But yeah, Joe, thanks for hopping on. A really a lot of good stuff and a lot of necessary things that athletes needed to hear.
It's great, man. I appreciate you having me, Nick.
Yeah, of course.
Talk soon, buddy.
And for everybody else, as always, keep striving for greatness.